300 years. That's how long an industry has operated the same way until now. Imagine a world where selling a business doesn't involve middleman, commissions, or any kind of hidden fees. A world where buyers have to put skin in the game before they can even reach to a seller. Our guest today is on a mission to disrupt the business for sale market in a way no one else has dared to till now. From serving in the military to getting a black belt in Hapkido, from managing a full house remodel to bootstrapping his own startup, he has done it all. But here's the kicker, he's still in the trenches, fighting through obstacles and uncertainties. Welcome to another episode of our Founders Podcast. I'm your host, Ash, and this is a show where I interview proven founders and industry experts who share their stories, strategies, and insights to help you grow your business. In this episode, we talk to Ivan, the founder of BizRetire. Ivan, welcome to the show.
Hey Ash, thank you so much for having me on.
Great. Do you have a favorite quote, something that inspires or motivates you? Would you like to share with our audience?
Yeah, so it's not from a famous person, but a quote that really has helped me. The quote goes, "It's not what happens to you, it's how you respond to it." And I think a lot of times we look at our circumstances, the conditions around us, and we tend to like get down on ourselves or get down on the circumstance. But a lot of times it's the fortitude in which we respond to the situations that help pull us through them. So it's really kind of stuck with me.
Definitely. My mom used to tell me this in her weird way that you know, whatever you plan, don't think that it's the end, because I kind of believe in God, and in the culture where I was raised, because God always have a different plan for you.
Yeah.
So along the
And
same
God's
lines.
plan a lot of times doesn't look like our plan. And in our mind, we think our plan's better. But if you believe in a higher power, if you believe in God, then, why wouldn't God's plan be better for us than our own? And so, exactly.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, after all, even if you believe in a God or not, there has to be some kind of superpower who has better understanding of our world, isn't it? Great. So tell us about BizRetire. What does the product or service do? Who is it for? And what's the main problem you're trying to solve?
Yeah. So, Biz Retire was really born out of my own journey. I was on the buyer side looking to buy a business for my wife, actually. And
Hmm.
through that whole process, it was a very short process because I got frustrated really quickly. But um, you
Hmm.
know, reaching out to a business broker, which is kind of like a middleman, when you think about buying or selling a house, it's like a real estate broker, but for businesses.
Hmm.
And so I was reaching out to a business broker, and you reach out. It takes about a day or so for them to get back to you with a non-disclosure agreement, essentially saying that you're not going to give away any information or any trade secrets, things like that.
Hmm.
You send that back to them, and then like a day later, they send you a package, which is a very generic, high overview of like the business, where it's located, how much it costs, things like that.
Hmm.
And then you ask a couple questions. The business broker has to talk to the owner. The owner has to get back to the business broker. The business broker gets back to you. And by the time you've asked, two or three questions in this process, I mean, you've already spent 2 or 3 weeks, and you haven't even, you barely had a few questions asked and answered. And so I was kind of just scratching my head. I'm like, there's got to be a better way. But then I kind of stopped and asked. I was like, well, there's a reason there's business brokers. They exist for a reason. There has to be. Otherwise, no one would use them. And so I started thinking about, what it is that business brokers do for a client.
Hmm.
And a lot of it is the middleman protects the seller in a lot of ways, right? And so there's a lot of
Hmm.
buyers out there, especially today, with a lot of the influencers and things like that talking about buying and selling businesses, and,
Hmm.
and all that. They really kind of give the story that you can go out and buy a business with no money down without paying anything, that it's really super easy to find businesses. They talk
Hmm.
about the silver tsunami where 10 million business owners are going to retire in the next 10 years. And so, go and snatch up a business, become an entrepreneur today. And while some of that might be true, the reality is that it's not that easy. And so business brokers are really filtering out some of those wannabe entrepreneurs that really have no knowledge on how to buy businesses, that are really going to waste the time of the seller.
Mm-hmm.
And the business broker help list, they help package the deal. And so there were some services there that the business brokers offered that were important. And so I created Biz Retire because I kind of felt like the process was a little stale, a little old. I did some research, and to your introduction, it's been several hundred years that business brokers in some form or fashion have been part of the buy and sell process. If you think 300 years ago when they had muskets and everything like that, I mean, you didn't have the internet. You needed someone that knew the local market, know who was selling the business, who's buying the business, who knew the local laws, all that stuff. You needed that person back then. That was really important. But today
Mm.
we live in a day and age where there's tons of internet. There's connectivity. You can learn things on a dime. We have AI now. So there's a lot of learning can be done. Not to say that business brokers aren't important, their knowledge isn't valuable, but the truth is business brokers only sell about 5 businesses a year. And so if I were to
Mm.
say, "Hey, I'm going to go to the PGA tour and I've only golfed 5 times," you would laugh at me straight in my face. You'd say, "You have no idea, you have no knowledge, no experience." But yet we entrust, for business owners, it's 80% of their net worth and their assets are tied up in this business. And we entrust
Mm.
these people that only have, five times experience selling a business to
Mm.
handle that asset. And at the end of the day, they take away 5 to 20% of that. And so then the business
Mm.
owner has to pay, 50% taxes, 5 to 20% broker commission. You got lawyers, accountants, you have appraising like the asset, the equipment. So you have all these expenses, and by the time at the end of the day, the business broker is really left, or the business owner is really left with nothing. And so I created Biz Retire, with the idea of what is it that a business broker provides, and what does an online listing platform provide, and how can I mesh the two together to create something that does the best of all things.
Mm.
This is a long-winded answer to your question. What is Biz Retire? What services is it? But what it is, it's an online marketplace where buyers have to sign a non-disclosure agreement. They check a box saying they agree to it before they can even why they're creating an account. And
Mm.
the listings will only show a small snippet of information, just enough to kind of give the buyer a teaser. If they actually want to go and see the material in the listing, like all the financials and some of the data and things like that, they have to pay. They have to pay to
Mm.
see that. And for a buyer who's kind of just looking for a free business, well, if you got to pay to see the business, you've already lost the objective. You can't now buy a business with zero money down. And so it kind of really eliminates some of the people who are wasting times as a buyer or seller, sorry.
Mm.
Um, but this is also good for the buyers, because if you look at like some of my competitors like Biz Buy Sell,
Mhm.
they have 150 to 250,000 free buyer accounts, meaning you can
Mm.
sign up for free, and you don't even have to have an account. You can actually look on the listings for free and
Mm.
contact the person listing. So imagine having a business that, I don't know, 50,000 people want, getting a notification in in their emails, those buyers, and now you've got 10,000 emails as a business owner who's already working 70-hour weeks or something crazy. There's no way
Yeah.
that they can sort through 10,000 emails. So
No.
what Biz Retire does is there's a low volume of buyers. The buyers are committed to buying. And
Mhm.
for the sellers, that's good because they only have a few people they have to talk to that they know that are already kind of vetted. And they can, and for the sellers, they know, like, is this person going to be a good culture fit for my company? Are they going to be a good culture fit for my community? Are they have the values and skills that I have to run this business? And for the buyer, they don't have the competition. They don't have to compete with 10,000 other emails or 10,000 people. And so it really is a win for everybody involved in the process.
That's really, really interesting because I have bought a couple of businesses back, but in UK it's getting more and more harder with new government we have and all the taxes are going in. And I don't really understand how it works in US. But you have actually pointed really crucial pain points here, right?
Mm,
Taxes, commissions, lawyers' fees, solicitors and everything, right? So I do have first-hand experience with that, and I can totally relate to it. So talk to us about you mentioned about this has started because you wanted to help your wife to basically acquire a business, right? And then you figured out all these challenges. Talk to us about like how you vet the buyers, because I know for sure the moment I am interested in a business, it's not just the seller, but 100 other brokers also contact me. Like, I wanted to buy a coffee shop,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Yeah. So not the buy sell business portal, because that, I think that's not the number one in UK. I think that's second or third, but we have a lot of local vendors who are doing the similar thing. What happened is I requested the details, and then suddenly I started receiving calls, like 2 or 3 calls every day. But it's not the owner of that business, it's the brokers, and they started giving me some updates. Oh, you should check this and that, and we can do it for you, and we charge this and that. How do you figure out that it's broker or the seller, and how do you vet them?
You mean when you're like selling the business, who it is?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so for
Because
Biz
obviously this.
Retire, there's
Sorry,
a
go on.
there's a no broker policy. So you
Hmm.
can't be a broker selling a business. You can't be a broker in there with a buying account.
Okay.
If you are, we ban your account. So it's pretty forbidden. I mean, our platform is 100% just connecting the buyer directly with the seller.
Uh-huh.
And that's what we do. So we kind of cut that out. We don't sell the data to brokers who give you a call and all that other stuff. I mean, we
Hmm.
do encourage you. I kind of envision brokers. If my business takes off and this model kind of is the prevalent model in the future, I kind of envision brokers being more of an advisory piece. And so what would happen is you're selling your business as a business owner. It's your first time. Most times it's your first time, and maybe you need to know how to interpret an LOI, letter of intent, right? Or you need to interpret, an offer, or what kind of professionals do you need to hire. So you go to a
Yeah.
business broker and you pay an hourly rate. Maybe it's a high hourly rate. Maybe it's $200 an hour, but you only need 5 hours, right? Instead
Yeah.
of a 20% commission on $1 million business, which is $200,000, which is a completely different sum of money. And so,
Mm.
um, you know, I would hope that brokers would want to do that too, because the way it works now is only 20% of businesses that are listed by a broker actually sell. And so
Mm.
as an owner, when you go to sell your business, you're paying a failure tax. And what that means is when your business successfully sells, you have to compensate that broker for the four other businesses that did not sell. And that's why the commissions are so high. So you're paying
Mm.
for all their failure and all the other instances. With a advisory role for the broker, they actually get compensated for their time. They add immediate value to the business owner, and they can help hundreds of business owners a year getting those reps in. Like I was talking about the PGA Tour analogy, right? So now they're
Mm.
helping 100 businesses a year. They're seeing a lot more stuff. They're getting a lot more knowledge, a lot more experience. They're more knowledgeable in their craft. And I really
Mm.
think that's how a business broker, the profession, will evolve. I think the bad business brokers will eventually fade away, the mediocre business brokers as well, and then only the good ones will remain at the end of the day. And so, um, that was a little bit more than what you asked for, but I think that's kind of the direction. But with Biz Retire, we
Yeah.
don't. There is no broker contact with the seller.
Mm. That's actually good, because at least this way the seller knows whosoever is going to contact me from the marketplace is going to be somebody who is genuinely interested in my business and is the end buyer person, not a broker person.
Yeah.
And did you touch the point how you vet them? Because if I am a broker and I register on your portal, how do you know I am not a broker? Do you like ask me for my bank account detail? Do I have that kind of money? What's the process?
Yeah, so I don't ask or vet, not yet.
Mm.
A little bit of research online with a phone number or name can actually tell a lot about a person.
Mm.
And so no, I don't do that. But if it's reported to me, I definitely will ban those accounts.
Got it.
Yeah,
Perfect. So
with no
you depend
refunds.
upon the. Yeah, 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 definitely.
It's in the
And
terms.
I think it's a very good idea that you're giving this opportunity to the sellers to report these people who are contacting them. If they
Mhm.
start selling them any kind of brokerage service, you instantly know that they're brokers, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. Great stuff. So when you started, Bizretire, I'm sure you must have looked into the market, right? You must have done some research. What was going on? What did you found, like, buy sell businesses, as you mentioned, as your competitor? And what made you go forward or encourage you to continue with this idea? Because usually when founders start something new, if they see there's a huge competition, for example, nobody will start a Facebook now, even though there was like Orkut and MySpace in the old days. But it's very difficult to fight into that saturated market now. What encouraged you to go forward with it?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. So there are a lot of business for sale marketplaces out there. I think I personally have found about 900 or so of them. And so the competition is definitely out there, but the models are very repetitive. So
Hmm.
you have the kind of the biz buy sell model where it's like this free accounts, you go in there and you list businesses. There's that model. There's the model where you have buyer and seller being connected, but the
Hmm.
platform is the business broker essentially. They're the middleman that takes a commission on the sale. So the platform gets involved with your business. So essentially you have a business broker whether you like it or not, and you can't choose it. It's just the platform.
Yeah.
There's other platforms that are the middleman, or that they have brokers that they can refer to you or that they use to help you doing that. And so all of those models, there's still commission involved, right?
Mm.
Or there's so many free accounts available that the seller will be flooded with all these inquiries, for example.
Mm. Mm.
And so that's the majority of the marketplace. And most business brokers are excited only about businesses that make $1 million, USD or higher.
Mm.
And so, in the United States, that only represents 1% of all the businesses in the United States. And
Mm.
so 99% of all the other businesses are under that. And so business
Yeah.
brokers don't really like the small guy. They're much harder to sell. And a lot of the smaller guys want to do it themselves anyways, right? They've had some experience with business brokers. They're a little jaded on the process. And this market's really underserved, right? And
Yeah.
and to be honest, a lot of buyers don't want to buy these businesses, because a lot of times you have a main operator, and a buyer would literally take on financing to buy this business, but they would be buying a job, right? Because they would have to step into that role, do the work, and so that's not attractive to a lot of people. And so this market's very represented.
Mm.
That's the market that I try to represent, the smaller guys. But I'm talking to a company right now that makes $3 million profit a year. They probably make 12 to $15 million in revenue. So, I mean, this model is exciting for everyone in between. And like you said, hey, I've owned some businesses, and I kind of like this model. It sounds kind of nice.
Yeah.
Um, you know. So yeah, that's the market, and so I feel like there's a lot of opportunity for me out there.
That's really good. Like your research is very thorough. I mean, the fact that you know that in US itself there's more than 900 plus platforms who are doing exactly same thing tells me like there must be 90,000 brokers around there, right? In the business. I'm just
Yeah,
guessing a number, right? Because, and as you said that there are just 1% businesses who make, is it revenue more than 1 million or is profit more than 1 million?
I think it's revenue. Yeah,
It's revenue.
yeah,
and
yeah,
and and if their revenue 1 million more than, sorry, if the businesses have more than 1 million revenue, and if that's just 1%, that tells me that there's a huge market in state itself that's underrepresented actually.
yeah,
And I can totally see that if a business is making less than a million, then they can't actually have more than 20 or 25 headcounts, right? I mean, that's my guesstimate, I'm guessing.
yeah, yeah,
And with that kind of headcount, I'm guessing that each person is doing multiple roles. That means a lot of workload already on their head. And the moment when the business owner decide to go forward with selling of the business, that already is he or she is already in that mindset of working 70 hours a week. But now you have another job for them to look through the hundreds of emails. So I think
yeah.
you have hit it a very bullseye kind of like niche in this space. So where is Bizrita right now? I mean, in terms of uh, sense of the business, how many team members you have, how many customers you have? Would you able to share this information with our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, we're small. I mean, it's just me right now. My
Hmm.
wife, I joke that she's the investor. She's the one working right now and paying the bills and everything like that. So, shout out
Hmm.
to her. She's really a trooper. There's been, it's a lot of failure. I think the failure rate for founders is 90%, and so you don't jump into you shouldn't jump into being a founder without the realization that you're more than likely going to fail. Now, your statistics go up higher the more you jump into it and try again. But yeah, the first time is a 90% failure rate, and so definitely a small platform, definitely a small business, definitely not profitable yet, and so it's hard because my target audience is the boomer generation. So we're talking, I think 50 plus, and a lot of them, they're not very tech savvy. They're not very interested in the tech savviness. They like the idea of walking into a broker's office, shaking someone's hand,
Yeah.
knowing that everything's going to kind of be taken care of for them. That's a comfort for them. I think that's something that they see as a value add. But this technology thing is very, I've had to walk almost every single person that's listed on my website, literally on a phone call, step by step on how to like create an account and put a listing. It's really is that like that's how much they need help with just doing something as basic as that. And not to get down on them, but that's tough. It's tough for me because that's my target audience, that's my market, and
Mm.
that's one of the struggles. And so maybe Biz retires 10 years too early, or 15 years too early. So maybe in 10, 15 years will be,
More
the
more
next Amazon
natural.
of business. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But right now it's tough because you call someone up or you send them an email and they're like, okay, well, who are you? Well, I'm Evan. I'm a founder. I got this thing and I'm doing something different, and go to my website, and oh, you got to put your credit card information in, and all, like it's just really tough to get people to really trust me. And it's sad, but that's just the way the world is that you can't trust anyone anymore. And so especially add the
Yeah.
technology piece. So that really is my bottleneck, my that's the struggle.
No, no, I totally agree. And user-centric design is something which might be able to help you later on at some stage. But given that you're doing it by yourself, everything is managed by you as a business, I think it's a little bit of hard side of things, which I can totally understand. So walk us through your current business process, even. How do you well, how does your funnel look like? Where do you get your inquiries? Is it outbound or inbound? And how do you nurture your customers to sorry how do you nurture your users to become your customers?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question right now. I think everybody that's a buyer of businesses. Let me put it in perspective. So for every listing I have on my platform, I have I think the last count was 35 buyer accounts.
Hmm.
Or for every business owner account, a seller account, I have 35 buyer accounts. So for me, it's 35 times more buyers out there than there are sellers, at least for my metrics.
Mm.
Um, and I've never advertised to buyers once. So
Mm.
it's only been to sellers. And so if you think about that in terms, it's tough because I'm looking for people selling their business, and those buyers are also looking for people who are selling their business, right? And so I'm not only competing against my other competitors to get those people on my platform, I'm competing against all the buyers who are cold calling and emailing and knocking on doors and everything like
Mm.
that. And so, finding the leads is very tough. I started out with social media because it's been tough because my wife's not very interested in putting a lot of money in advertising. So we're trying to do a lot of organic leads, like podcasts, like what I'm doing here and other things like that. But I used a lot of my social medias that were already having a lot of followers. So, like for example, I had built up my LinkedIn profile, and so I've tripled my follower count there, and I created a brand page there. Facebook, I'm starting to utilize my follower count, my personal connections there to grow my business that way. And so organically just doing whatever I can. And and recently I've actually started to get referrals, word of mouth referrals from people who are referring people to me, which is a good sign. And so then when someone gets referred to me or I make that connection, it really is about getting on the phone, having a conversation with them, doing a video
Mm.
chat like, hey, I'm a real person. I'm actually in the United States. I'm not, an AI bot. I'm not, this is really what I do. I got my logo. I got a company. I'm a real person, and this
Uh,
is what I'm
I'm not
about.
a call center in south of India trying to scam
Yeah,
you,
yeah,
or somebody who just want your credit card. I'm a genuine platform.
right.
It's the noise in the market which it's the noise in the market which let down the real founders also. That's what I think. I can feel it, because if you start something new, first you have to compete with all these lead generation bots and companies who do it like 24/7, right? Even though you're genuine, you're like the person is like locally available, you have to compete with them. And then once you compete with them, there's like, oh, but this person is charging me less, or this person is not charging me at all. It's free, right? It's annoying. Cool.
Well, it's a
So I think,
battle. Yeah, sorry, I was gonna say it's a battle for people's attention. Go ahead.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I mean. Cool. So your first like awareness funnel level is by social media and referrals and following you have been set up, right? What's the second layer of your funnel? Do you like have a one-to-one call with them? Do you have like sort of like a course built for them? What's going on there?
Yeah, and I think this is where I probably need to develop it a little bit more. I've been trying to write some articles on my website as a dual
Mhm.
purpose to educate the audience, but also, it's good for SEO to bring organic web traffic to my website.
Yeah.
I had partnered with a professional to write an article, and
Mhm.
that was helpful. I think what I didn't want to step into the space and wear so many hats where I had to, get my, certified exit planning advisor certificate and then try to pretend to be some kind of, advisor for these customers, and then, know all about loans and stuff. And so I've really partnered with people who are experts in their field that have, 10,000, 20,000 hours doing what it is that they're doing, rather
Mm.
than me trying to wear that hat. And by extension, here's some referrals for you. This will help you out. And then getting those referrals back, building a referral network. You're building trust with people. They know who you are. And, when it comes down to someone, buying a business or selling a business, a lot of times they'll send them to me. Someone's looking for loans. I have a lady that I send them to, like, hey, this lady knows all these lenders. She can help you with your specific situation. She's done some unique financing. Hey, this guy,
Mm.
he can help you do exit planning. This guy over here does ESOPs, employee stock option programs. And so having that expert professional network is huge, because tapping into that is really powerful.
Yeah.
So I think a
Yeah.
lot of times founders want to do everything. Like, I have time. I'll be your advisor. I'll be your this. I'll be your that, and you can really get lost in that, I think.
Yeah. 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 And I can see that when you're a founder, when you don't have like you haven't liquidated yourself, or you haven't got any capital injection from either angel investor, you try to do as much as you can by yourself. But ultimately it depends upon like how much return you're getting, because your time is also expensive. You are there because of a reason, right?
Yeah.
And it's all about deciding what to delegate and what to do yourself so that you can get the best value. Cool. So you get your customers from the awareness stage. You're trying to write down articles and getting a referral network in place to educate your customers. And I'm guessing the final stage is to convert the educated customers into users into customers, I'm guessing. And that's where you ask
Yeah.
them for their card.
Well, I try to do that, and so it's interesting with my space, because with what I'm doing is sometimes I'll talk to owners that are like, well, I do want to sell my business, but I'm not going to sell it for 3 years.
Hmm.
And so, like, they're not going to ever list with me like 3 years out. I can try to say, hey, well, put it on the market, get some market feedback, make some changes, make your business more valuable. I'll give you a free period to do that, to get that insight for free. A lot of times they're not taking that. They're not going to do that. And
Mm.
so that's where the network is important, because if you know that they're good people that you're referring them to, then the hope is that if they get taken care of, they'll come back to you in 2 or 3 years. But that really is the long game referral. And I do
Mm.
want to talk really quickly. I just want to touch on it. So, for example, like I was doing cold email. I had
Mm-hmm.
like 600,000 emails, and um, you know, I probably sent out 50,000 emails or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave up on that. And I reflect on that really heavily, because I was like, what you were saying, my time is valuable.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, there are people who literally do nothing but cold email all day long. And
Mm.
so for me, I look at that and say, well, cold email sucks. Cold email never works. But then I have to take a step back. Well, I've only literally gave it a half effort, right? I've maybe written 10, 15 different email iterations.
Mm.
I've only got so much feedback, and so why would I be successful? I've
Yeah.
only put in maybe 10 hours and like rewriting emails and trying new things and looking at data, like 10 hours, right? There are people who have put in, 10,000 hours into this. And so it's like, I think there are methods out there that I've not tapped. And I think for
Mm.
founders, anybody who's listening to this, to write off cold calling or write off cold emails or write off some of these things is not successful. It's just, you haven't put in the PGA Tour hours, right? You haven't gotten the expertise to do what it is that you need to do. And so it comes down to is like, where do you want to put your money, your resources, your time? And it goes back to, are you going to try to provide every service to your clients? Are you going to try to master a referral source? Are you going to try to master your sales process? My
Mm.
website has visual bugs. Should I go hire somebody or fix the visual bugs? Like, as a founder, you have 15 things that you need to be doing at one time. And so um, you know
Yeah.
having a schedule and writing it down and figuring out what's the next most urgent thing. Not everything's important, but what's more urgent. And so yeah, that's it. That's the life of a founder.
That's the life of a founder. Yeah, yeah. And exited from a couple of businesses. I know that this is what we like, right? The hustle that's empowers us, right? That's cool. That's cool. Great stuff. So even I have two more segments in my show. So let's go to the second one, which is very cool. Go through with my guest on this segment where I try to show what we have discussed till now. And then based on that, if there is something missing or something which you want to add, we will add to it. And then after finishing this bit, we will move to the third segment. So let me share my screen. Cool. So what you mentioned till now is this marketplace is basically brainchild of your own pain. So there's a saying like eat your food dog or something like that. I don't know, what is it. Is it like eat your
Eat
food,
the frog first, like
eat,
eat
eat
the
the eat
biggest
the
pest
dog's
first.
food or something like that? Like you come with a business idea because of you face the pain, you
Mm-hmm.
know so you reached out to a business bro. You wanted to buy a business for your wife, and then you came across multiple brokers, and then you realized the problems with actually buyers actually face, and that's how you came up with this idea. You also researched about why people feel more comfortable in terms of connecting with brokers. The brokers actually protect the sellers. They know that the market is really really big, so they help them filter out all the uh, you know negative or non-buyer personas. And then they also try to come up with package deals for them, which is usually suitable for the business sellers. And then you also mentioned that your platform Visit R is basically focusing on only sellers and buyers, which gives them, um, peace of mind to the sellers that okay, whatever inquiries I'm going to receive will be majorly um, for from the people who are interested in the buying the business, and they're not brokers. So no broker policy completely. That was a really good one, because I think that's your USP. You need to market that. And then you also talked about your research, where you found out there are more than 900 platforms in US itself who are doing the same thing. But they could be a broker platform themselves. They might be a broker agency, and that's why they created this platform. And then most of the businesses the buyers are more interested in is potentially generating revenue more than 1 million, which is just 1% of the whole cake, whereas 99% of the businesses are making less than a million revenue in a year. And that gives you a huge opportunity where you can get connected with these kind of sellers of the businesses and connect them with the right buyers who are interested in their business model and revenue generation. So that was really, really cool. And then you mentioned about your current funnel, where you have a lot of referrals, email. You tried email, cold emailing. Now you're trying social media like LinkedIn and Facebook groups. That's where you aware your potential customers. And then on the second stage, you're trying to educate them with your SEO optimized articles and potentially other social media um, artifacts, and that takes the potential buyer into the customer as a lead persona. So that's pretty much it. Anything else you think we have missed here, or you want to add?
Mhm. Yeah, I think the other piece, maybe a piece that's kind of missing, is that I didn't touch on was that, I think it takes longer to work with a broker, and
Mm-hmm.
then rather than just the buyer and seller connecting. And the reason I think that it takes longer, and so this is something for the sellers to consider, is that the from buyer to broker to owner, owner back to broker, broker back to buyer. You have a communication chain. It takes longer, and, a
Mm-hmm.
broker might have 10 or 15 business listings. And if they have 10 to 15 emails per day on each of those listings, that's a lot of
Mm.
time. 50 to 70% of a broker's time is spent filtering those emails and talking to those buyers.
Yeah.
When in reality, a seller and buyer can just hash out those details really quick and get the process moving almost immediately.
Mm. That's interesting, because again, this is applicable with a lot of other industries, but here specifically, because you're talking about big chunk of money, you want to make sure that you're taking, because time is money in this world, right? If you're
Yeah.
making decision faster, that means you're making money faster, which is win-win for not just the buyer but also for seller, right?
Yeah. And a lot of
Yeah.
sellers in this 1 million and under, a lot of times they're forced to sell because of bad health,
Mm.
divorce, dismemberment. And so they need to sell their business quicker. And so, biz retire would be might be a better option for them if they're trying to sell quicker.
Cool, 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 cool. So I think that's pretty much it for the second segment. So let's move to our third segment on the show, where I have got 6 quick fire questions for you.
Okay.
If you can answer them, that would be good. If you can't, just tell me and we will skip them. But they're very casual questions. So you ready?
Let's do it.
Great. What are the top 3 strategies to so what are the top 3 factors to consider before buying a business in 2025?
Yeah. One, are you qualified to buy a business? Do you have the capability to run that business, right? Do you have the financing available? Are you willing to put on your own mortgage, your assets on the line to do that? And what is your motivation behind buying the business? Are you doing it for fame? Are you doing it for identity? If you're doing it for anything other than to serve your customers, you're doing it for the wrong reasons, I think.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. A lot of people just think that, oh, if I buy this business and I just keep running it as the current, you know, uh, owner is, then I'll just make money. But that's not true. That owner could have some leverages or some knowledge of what that person has developed during his learning period. So that's not true for all the buyers. So that's a good one. What book would you recommend to our audience, and why?
Oh, Wow. So I'm not an avid reader. I need to spend more time doing it. My my gimmick answer would be the Bible, and the reason is because I think if you're just doing this for wealth, notoriety, I mean, for to be famous, you're really serving something other than what money is. Money is a certificate of service, meaning you're adding value to people. You're putting other
Yeah,
people first, and so many people get in entrepreneurship because it's easy money, it's financial freedom, it's I look smart, or I've made big success, and those things can fuel you for a little while, but after a while they become empty and hollow. And so I think having a bigger mission and bigger purpose is really important.
yeah, yeah. No, definitely. I still remember the phrase I have heard a couple of years back during my conversation with my professor at Oxford. Like, there's a certain amount of money you can have, which puts you into the bracket where you can actually enjoy whatever other person can. So for example, if you have 350 million, you're enjoying exactly same thing which Jeff Bezos is enjoying, because there's not much you can do after that threshold, right? And
Yeah.
that's when you come across this thing, like then you start seeing or feeling happiness when you start helping other people, when you see that into other people's face, that okay, this is what I, you know happiness means after that threshold. So yeah, I can relate to that, so thanks for that. What one attribute do you think, or one characteristic in your mind of a successful founder?
Persistence,
Mm,
because I think Alex Hormozzi says it best. Seek out your 100 failures. If you knew that your big break was going to be at the 101st, after the 100th failure, it would be the 101st try, you would go out and intentionally seek out every single failure possible. But the truth is, a lot of times people will stop 80% of the way there, 90% of the way there, maybe even 97% of the way there, and you haven't
mm,
stuck to it. I think the commonality, you know, uh, going back to the Bible, there's a lot of agricultural representations in there. When Jesus talked about parables, I have a
mm,
garden, I have a food forest, actually, like tropical things, and I live in the middle of the desert. And when you put a plant in the ground, right, you don't get fruit right away. You have to put time, money, soil, water, energy. It takes forever, right? And there's a saying in the growing world. It's sleep, creep, leap. Has how, like, the first year it's sleep, the second year the plant starts creeping, and the third year it
mm,
leaps. I think business
mm.
is a lot like that. You have to build a foundation, and then it slowly grows. And if you're not persistent, if you're not able to stick to it, you're not going to be successful.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Yeah, that's true. Okay, let's move to the next one. What's your favorite personal productivity tool or habit?
I've been struggling. I'm going to be honest with you. I've been struggling with this. I could do a whole entire podcast about this, but in a world of distractions and noise, the biggest productivity habit is to uh, literally cut from your life as much as possible. Whether for me, it's like video games, entertainment. It's just kind of like I'll scroll through social media, say that I'm working on the business, but I'm reading things that I'm not posting. I'm not commenting. I'm not replying. I'm not creating content. And so, even though I'm doing research, it's really not productive. I'm not producing anything. And so, get rid of distractions, I think, is the number one thing in this day and age. Everyone's fighting for your attention, but don't let them have it.
Great. And last but not least, what's an interesting or fun fact about you that most people don't know?
Ooh, interesting or fun fact about me that most people don't know. I would say, yeah, like the gardening thing, black belt in Hapkido. I was in the military. I don't know
Yeah,
if any of that's interesting or fun, but those are some things.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool, cool, cool. Well, Evan, thank you so much for being with us. Would you share some details, like if people want to get in touch with you, if somebody wants to sell their business or buy some business, how do they get in touch? How do they find out Visit that?
Yeah, check me out on LinkedIn.com. It's under Evan Poling. You can go there. I check that regularly, so definitely message me there. You can send me a contact form on bizretire.com. I have socials on X and Facebook, so you can also contact me there as well.
Perfect.
Well,
Ivan, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on Founders Podcast.
yeah, thank you so much, Ash. It's been a pleasure myself.